great day it is today, isn't it? So, before I even start, I just want you to know that some of this may hurt today. And it's not just directed at you, but it's also remembering myself as well. So, I just want you to put your seatbelt on, lock in, and let's get ready to go. So, first of all, I realize how funny it is that when you're in your house or around somewhere and just seeing one thing off center, just seeing one thing out of place can actually throw your whole room off. You're just so centered on why is that off? I mean, I remember walking into hotels and seeing a picture behind the the person helping me at the front desk, and they're sitting there and they're trying to help me, and the whole time I'm looking at that picture that's slightly off. And I can't even really focus on them because I'm focusing on that picture. And the thing is that order doesn't just make things neat for a lot of us, it makes us feel, well, safe. It gives us that sense of things being in place. And that one small fix that we're dealing with can actually quiet the mind faster than any meditation app can. And that's why for many of us that's so important. Right, I can't even talk. That reaction right there, that spot that you need to fix, or that exhale, it isn't random. It's actually biology. The brain rewards closure. Every time you finish something or bring order, dopamine fires. And that's why that relief that we get feels so real, because it's a chemical reaction. And over time your nervous system starts chasing that hit, and control becomes, well, a shortcut to calm. If we can just maintain this order, if we can just maintain this control, we seem to feel calmer and like we have a handle on things. And you don't even think about it. You just step in. Now, everything about you wants that order and wants that control. And that impulse feels efficient. It feels responsible. It feels like adulting, right? But what you're really doing is you're regulating anxiety through movement. Is you're solving to actually soothe. And that's why stillness feels uncomfortable for a lot of us. Your body has began equating action with safety, being in control with that safety. And so there's actually neuroscience and behavioral psychology that backs this up. And I wanted to walk you through that real quick. So, there's something called the dopamine prediction loop. And what that is your brain is actually seeking the next completion to release the tension, because it's learned that expected release. Every time that you do something, you have that completion, that control, and you completed it, your body learns that, this feels good. I have control now. I'm calm now because there's closure. And the same thing with behavioral psychology is called compensatory control therapy. And that's when life feels uncertain and we try to restore some type of external, notice that, order whenever we can. So if one area of our life feels unsteady or we don't have control over it, because we don't always have control over every aspect of our lives. Our relationships can be going crazy, but our work life is great, or our work life can be so stressful, but the kids are out of control. So if one area of our life feels unsteady, we tighten control in the others. And it's not overreaction, it's compensation. We need to feel somehow, somewhere in our life that we have that control. And so control actually travels throughout our life. It doesn't just stay in one lane. It just doesn't just stay in always my work. I'll always have control there, or that's just not life. Life is always ever evolving, ever changing. And so we're going to deal with that. So you can't control the relation if you get, and what we do is we think that if I can't control the relationship, then what I'll do is I'll manage the schedule. At least I know what I'm supposed to do. And I feel like a sense or a semblance of control here, right? And if you can't control the market or what's going on financially, well, you organize your inbox. At least you know that you've responded to everybody and what needs to be taken care of. Somewhere in your life, there's control, and it's that same reflex looking for relief. Every time something is out of control, you want to compensate with putting something in control. I was just talking to someone yesterday, young lady, and we were talking about how it's so important that our homes, for many of us, our homes to be in some type of order, some kind of control, because for me, is when my desk is out of control, um, I feel jumbled inside. I just don't have that sense of calmness or peace because things are out of order. And we deal with that the same way in our homes, right? So when you feel that quick, sharp urge to fix things or to answer things or to clean or to decide, that's not discipline. That's your nervous system actually asking for safety. Please, safety. And once you can see that, you're no longer just reacting. Now you're at the point where you can begin to observe that reflex and call it what it is and understand what's going on. So now that we're seeing how fast and automatic this seeking control, this running for control, and why we're running for this control, I want to look at there's a contradiction here, that we deal with also with control. And it is that we say we trust people or we trust things, yet our behavior, that wanting that control in that instance, keeps proving that we really don't. We don't trust. And it's a contradiction that we live with, is this why we seek this control. And so one of the instances is that we trust people. We say we trust people, but somehow we're always double checking and going behind them, double checking their work or whatever it is. How many times do you, and I want to clarify this, how many times do you go behind someone in your home and check that they lock the door or they close the door? Or do you walk around your house at night and make sure all the doors are closed? So is this saying you don't trust that person who was the last one to come in, or or have they created the habit of not following through? So there's a difference between a person that has earned your trust or deserves your trust and a person who continually fails. So I want you to make sure you understand that there are people that we check behind all the time, that we need to check behind all the time, and that's because they have proven that they can't be trusted. That's not the person I'm talking about. That's not what we're talking about here. And so we call it, when we are going behind this person that we're supposed to trust, we call it follow up. Oh, I'm just following up on this. But they call it micromanaging. And nobody likes to be micromanaged. So double check that. Now, what we're getting ready to go into is, I always believe that as we deal with others, we also need to deal with ourselves. And we need to deal with ourselves in true honesty. And so the next few things that I want to talk about, we're going to have to be fully honest with ourselves. And if this is not you, great. But if you see yourself in here, I'm just bringing it to awareness. I just want you to be aware of it so you can go through these steps or understand it the next time. So my question is, which is it? Is it trust or control? So is it trust or control when you step back after delegating, um, and notice what it is that's driving it? If you step, and I said it wrong, if you step back in after delegating something, and you are you asking yourself what's driving it? Why am I doing this? Why am I being this way? Um, is it that you don't trust them? Or if you feel you trust them, is it that you think you can do better? And usually is not really the lack of trust in them. It's unspoken timelines or things that you've put on it that you didn't share with anybody else. You never said when it had to be done. You asked them to do something for you. Can you do the dishes for me? Can you wash the clothes for me? But you didn't say, I need them done before we leave today, or I need them done before we go to bed at night. You didn't say all that. So then you get angry at them because they didn't do the dishes, or they didn't wash the clothes, or they didn't do that report, or whatever it is. But did you share the timeline, your timeline with them? Did you share that? You never you never said that it had to be done. And all the while, you have this clock running in your head that nobody else is privy to. That private clock turns everyone into a disappointment waiting to happen because you're not sharing pertinent information with those. Another one of those invisible standards is not just time, but it's also precision. There are a lot of times there's a certain way that you like things done. But have you trained them? Did you show them the way that you like things done? Did you even share that with them? Or you just thought, well, they've been around me long enough, they should have picked it up by then. But nobody knew. Yet you measure their worth against a rule book that only you can see because you didn't share that and you didn't do the teaching. So that keeps you at the center and keeps everyone else guessing. So we have to look at ourselves and say, what is my part in this? I'm always big about ownership. So what is my part? Is this person someone I really trust, or and I've set them up for failure, or some person or a person that has over time shown that they can't be trusted? And we have to be really honest about that. And we also need to be honest with ourselves. Are we self-sabotaging or self-justifying ourselves? You're not sabotaging them. What you're doing is you're safeguarding yourself. You've built a world that constantly proves you're indispensable, you're needed, you're the only one that can do it like that. They know they can depend on you. And I know how that feels. And it feels great knowing that you're the one. But is your being the one jeopardizing others? And each time you say, see, I knew it, it just becomes another brick that you build up in that fortress of yours that keeps you strong and keeps you in control, right? It validates your need, the need for you, right? Your excellence, your order. But it's lonely as all get out in that fortress. As you build each brick and block everybody out, that's lonely. And I know that's not where you want to be. If they succeed without you, where does that lead you? Hmm. If they fail after you've let go, it confirms every fear that you've ever had. But now you know, right? So you keep that tight rope on them close, and you'd rather be tired than disappointed in them, or disappointed in you're not seeing that already. That was a, what do you call it, a disaster waiting to happen, that you're not seeing that, right? Every time help appears, what we do is we cut the rope before they climb. I always think of it as Rapunzel. Rapunzel sitting up. Remember, we just talked about that fortress we built of those blocks, right? So Rapunzel is sitting up there in this fortress, and she has her ropes of hair, her braids. We'll put her braids. She has more than one, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. But she has her braids hanging down, and she's asking for help, someone to get her out of this fortress of overwhelm and too much to do, right? And just as that help comes to climb, she cuts that strip of hair, that braid of hair, right? We say that we want dependability, but we never let them be dependable because we cut that strap, that strand of hair, right? Trust has to be tested. Yes, I get it. Can they climb? But we never let the test run to the full capacity. We never see if they can make it. So we live in that tower of our own making. It's safe, it's capable, and we're completely alone. Is that where we want to be? When someone calls on us, there are three things that usually happen if we build that fortress around ourselves. What happens is one, and these things happen fast. One, you either defend yourself. I'm just making sure that it gets done, right? Every time I give someone this responsibility, every time I depend on someone, they fall through. And so for this person, they're trying to live up to your expectations because you've already labored, put on them all the baggage of everybody else. Or you deflect. You say, if people would follow through, I wouldn't have to. It's their fault. They just need to follow through and do what they're supposed to do. Again, have you trained them? Did you tell them? Oh, they should just know. And boy, did I deal with that one. They should just know, right? I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care if it's your kids. Nobody knows what's in your mind. I'm just telling you. So, no, they shouldn't just know. If you haven't trained them, if you haven't taught them, no, they don't know. If you haven't told them, they don't know. Nobody knows what's in your heart and what's in your mind if you don't articulate it. And then the final thing is you reflect. Later, you reflect on what happened. And that's where most of us find out or are honest with ourselves. We replay the conversation in our mind. We realize maybe they are right. Maybe I was expecting them to read my mind and they don't know me like that. Or even if they know me like that, nobody can read my mind. If I've never shared those thoughts or those feelings before, ouch. Maybe I should talk to them. And that's the crack right there. That last one, that reflecting, that's the crack where awareness starts to slip through. Control doesn't prove responsibility, it protects us from risk. And until we see that protection is hiding, we'll keep calling control by those prettier names. So I want to talk now about what's really underneath it, the fear that actually is fueling that fixing. And the thing is, we're a lot of times it's control makes sense. It makes perfect sense until it doesn't. And you're thinking, if I can manage these moving parts, I can manage the pain. Control is a strategy, not a flaw. It started as protection from being disappointed. And sometimes it starts as a child and it's nothing big. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but it gives us the illusion that we can outplan the hurt. If we just do this, we can outplan that hurt. And disappointment over time had become our reflex. It's what we began to, or we learn to expect. And like I said, it doesn't have to be some trauma. Sometimes it's something small in our childhood that we were let down and it left this deep imprint. Maybe we were a child and it was Christmas and we had gone to the store, the department store, and we told Santa what we wanted. We really wanted that one that I remember, and most of you won't know what it is. It's a Chatty Cathy. And this isn't my story, but this is a doll that I wanted. And you really wanted that Chatty Cathy doll. Chatty Cathy, you pulled the string and she talked. And back then that was big. And so you knew that Santa was supposed to bring it to you on Christmas. And you woke up all excited that Christmas morning and you went down there and there was no Chatty Cathy. The one person you thought you could depend on, Santa, didn't come through. You didn't get Chatty Cathy. And that just destroyed your whole Christmas for you. On the outside, it's nothing big. It was a doll. She just didn't get it. We couldn't afford it. She didn't get it. But for that little girl, she learned then that one of the most dependable people in her life, or the person she thought never failed, always followed through, because that's the story we tell about Santa, he fell through. And so at that point, she says, if I stay ready, if I tell myself that I'm going to get disappointed, I don't have to feel like this again. I don't have to go through this to this level again. And so you begin to teach yourself that being disappointed, you don't care. That's fine. And your nervous system filed that under your safety protocols, your safety precautions. And you've been running that protocol ever since. If you don't depend on someone, they can't let you down. And you won't feel that hurt of being let down. So you tell yourself, if I expect less, I'll hurt less. If I manage it myself, I'll never be blindsided again. But every time you tighten that grip, you replay that same pain in slow motion. You just dress it up as efficiency. Now I'm more efficient. Now I'm more prepared. So I won't be disappointed. Control becomes our way of rehearsing disappointment on our own terms. So one of the other things that I thought about when I was preparing this is that control is like an emotional scar tissue. And most of you can relate with this. And if you can't, just bear with me. You have a C-section. Let's say you have a C-section or some kind of surgery and there's a scar there and it healed on the surface, but underneath is scar tissue. And so it's still sensitive underneath. So what we do is we build those routines, we build those rules and the rigid system to minimize that friction so we don't feel that the nerve endings firing and that pain or that discomfort, because we remember how that last cut felt. And we don't want to deal with that again. So now we wear clothes that are less tight, or we make sure that we don't irritate that area, we don't touch it, whatever it is. That's what we do with our lives. Before the scar, you want it to believe. You want it to believe in reliability. You want it to believe in love. You want it to believe in a world that can meet me halfway. Why am I not worthy to receive that, right? And that's what we were reaching for when we took the risk the first time. We believed control was never the goal here. It was the guardrail that we put in place after the crash. The wall that protects, what it does is it also isolates. You lose texture, you lose spontaneity, you lose intimacy, and you lose creativity because that wall that is slowly or has slowly built up around you. You trade risk for reliability and you end up with routine. I always say risk is good, but I love calculated risk, not blind risk. And that's what you have to learn to put in place is what I call calculated risk. So, can you think, here's my question for you. Can you think of one place where you built structure to protect yourself? And it also shuts something or someone out that you actually wanted. And I'd love for you to type one word, share with me one word or emoji that represents that area that happened in, whether it was your work, whether it was in a relationship, whether it was in parenting or in love. But where in your life did you build structure to protect yourself and it also shut someone or something out? And even if you don't share it, I want you to think about that and I want you to name it. Because behavioral scientists call this anticipatory coping. And it's managing emotion before the emotion happens. It works in emergencies. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this. It's great in emergencies. But when it runs 24/7, it becomes emotional over control. And that's not where we want to be. Control started as wisdom, right? But that wisdom turned rigid and it becomes your armor. I'm not saying control is bad. We know that. Most things in life are not bad. It's the misuse or the overuse of them that runs us into trouble. And so the real logic of control isn't wrong. It's just outdated. You built it to keep you safe from hurt. Hurt that was built on something in the past is great as a lesson, but it's now keeping you safe from hope. Is this if this is really resonating with you, if this is hitting with you, if you see where that scar tissue still dictates how much you trust, I want you to make sure that you continue to follow so that you don't miss next week, which will also be Thursday at 12 o'clock, because we're going to talk about what's beneath this reflex that we're talking about today, the fear that actually fuels the fixing. And look, if this is the kind of conversation that you want to be a part of, not just me talking to you or with you on a live, but us having that conversation, I would love for you to join me inside this community that we're building called the Undivided community. And I'll even explain why we label it Undivided. And it's a curated space. That's exactly where we start to unpack these patterns together. And so we're going to start with how control right now, I want to talk a little bit more about how this control reinforces itself. Because control doesn't always look like running a meeting, right? Sometimes it's just in control. You're in control of that meeting. So yeah, you're in control. But sometimes it's just not letting someone open the door for you. And I struggled with this a long time growing up as a young woman in society. I didn't want anyone to feel like they had to do anything for me. I was self sufficient. I could take care of myself. I didn't need you. And I sure didn't want to owe you something and you throw that back in my face. So for some of us, that control does look like just allowing someone to open the door for you. And we can call it independence and we can call it being efficient, but underneath it's the reflex to not be, to not need, to not need someone else to step in for you, to not be insufficient. Because if you don't need, you can't be disappointed. Because if you don't need anything and someone doesn't follow through, you're not disappointed, right? In that second, your brain says, I don't want to owe anybody anything. I don't want this to be used against me later, what I just said. It sounds responsible, right? But what you're really saying is, I don't trust that kindness comes without strings, without strings. No one's going to be kind to me just because they want to be kind. There's something behind it. And you think you're communicating strength, right? I'm strong, I'm independent. But what they're hearing is distance. You're saying, I've got it. Thank you, I've got it. And they're hearing, she doesn't want me close. So they stop offering. And you wonder why nobody opens the door for you, nobody offers to help you. Go back and look how many times you've turned down their help. You've shut down their kindness. And so they've stopped showing up and stopped trying because you've proved to them that no matter what they do, they're not going to take your help or they're not going to need your help. Then you read their silence, they're turning away from you, they're giving up as proof that people can't be counted on, that you were right all along because they don't ever ask you for anything or they don't ever ask to help you anymore. They don't step in, they don't help because you don't allow them to. So you tighten the grip and you step in faster next time. Never mind, I got it. That's okay, right? You control more. It's a cycle that feeds itself, safety through isolation, because you've learned somehow in your mind that the only one that you can depend on is you. But is that true? Because later, when the dust settles, you feel that pain, that recognition that maybe you pushed too hard and you shut someone out. But instead of sitting in it, you go straight into that fixing mode. What can I do to make it right? We know we messed up, but we want to control that too. We want to step in and we want to fix it, make it right, and manage their feelings. Even our repair is control in disguise, managing the moment so that it doesn't hurt again. Look, that's how deep this reflex runs. Even when you want connection, your first language is management. You don't mean to push people away. You're just trying to stay safe. And who doesn't want to be safe? Who wants to feel hurt? But I want you to be honest with me. What's one small gesture You usually refuse that might actually be someone trying to take care of you. Something small like opening the door. What's one small action? Let me know that you refuse that may be someone just trying to show care or kindness or love or respect towards you. And go ahead and drop it in the comments if you're catching me live. Psychologists call this overcontrol. And it's a pattern where the same skills that make you effective at work quietly starve you of support in life. The nervous system gets used to managing alone. Receiving actually feels foreign or wrong or not natural. So control doesn't just live in how you lead, it lives in how you let people love you. Every "I've got this" builds a wall that keeps proving that you're right, but still leaves you alone inside, isolated. Control doesn't just organize your world, it regulates your relationships. When every interaction is managed, genuine connection can't breathe. You start losing the art of honest exchange because comfort now depends on control. Others feel it too, that subtle discomfort that you're experiencing. They start editing themselves, second guessing whether they can say this to you or whether they can have this conversation with you or how you're going to react. And they try to stay in the lanes that you have already drawn. And that's hard walking in someone else's lane. What you experience is reliability, but what they experience is rigidity. Your unbending, your unpliability, if that's a word. You're not angry about the distance. You just feel different, like you don't fit in, like no one understands. You're able to operate, but unable to relate. You walk into rooms and handle everything, yet you leave feeling like no one actually saw you, understood you, felt you, got you. So you turn inward, trying to figure it out. You ask, what's wrong with me? Why can't I connect with people like other people can? Why is it such a struggle? Because you're a strategist. You analyze it, you chart it, you trace it, you make it plain. But emotion is not logic. The harder you try to solve it, the further you drift from it. Control promises safety, but it stole your ease of relating. You didn't lose your ability to connect, not at all. You muted it under management. That's the real cost. When safety becomes more important than sincerity, that's the cost of control. So before we go, I want to ask, what's one place in your life that feels orderly but empty? Do you have that beautiful home but never anyone to share it with? Built for entertainment and fun and laughter, but you never invite anyone over, where everything runs smoothly, yet you don't feel present in it. I want to give you a second for silent and quiet reflection. Is this you? So, this week, it's all about awareness, not fixing, not blaming. I just want you to see where this control shows up in your life. It's just about noticing where control protects you and where it quietly isolates you. And next week, we're going to move into how do we accept that this is what's going on. We'll name what this reflex really is, what it's really protecting, and why letting go feels so risky, even when you know better, even when you know what's going on. Why can't you let go? Look, again, if you got something from this conversation, or you know someone who would benefit from this conversation, if this conversation has helped you see yourself a little clearer, I want you to follow, subscribe, so that you don't miss next week's conversation. And if you're ready to explore these patterns in a community, and it's a free community, but it's a curated community, I want you to join me in the Undivided, and I'll put the link in the show notes. It's where we turn awareness into calm and sustainable change. It's a community that you build and we build together. Until next time, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for going through the hard things. And thank you for being honest with yourself. Take care. Bye bye.